Sorry, sweetheart, this table's for family only. My mother's voice rang out across the restaurant like a bell dipped in poison. The words were wrapped in a smile, but they cut like glass. I had just stepped into the candlelit room, heels clicking quietly, clutching a small gift bag I'd spent the week curating the place with stunning crystal glassware. Gold-trimmed menus, velvet seats. The kind of place we only went once a year, and even then, only for someone important. This year, it was her. I paused at the end of the table, scanning for a seat. My brothers were already halfway into their second-course tailored suits, crisp. Ivy sat with one elbow perched like royalty wine glass in hand, her diamond earrings catching the light. They all looked up at me with synchronized expressions of casual disinterest. That's when Mom said it loudly with a smirk and gestured behind her. A metal fold-out chair had been pulled up next to a service station, one of those cold, creaky ones they keep for emergencies. It sat beside the swinging kitchen doors and a trash bin that already smelled like bleach and seafood. The table laughed. My aunt half covered her mouth, trying to look polite. My dad didn't even glance up from his steak. I stood frozen for a breath, then two, waiting. Hoping someone would say it was a joke, that my place was here at the table, not beside the trash, like an afterthought. But no one spoke. I swallowed, nodded once, and walked quietly to the chair. It screeched as I pulled it out. A busboy nearly bumped into me on his way to dump another tray of scraps. I ordered sparkling water when the waiter finally noticed me. No one asked if I wanted a menu. No one turned around. I watched them through the reflection of the glass divider, laughing over some inside joke. I was never told. I blinked hard, but it wasn't the bleach that made my eyes sting. I sat with my hands in my lap, dress pressed flat, legs crossed. I had bought the dress just for this dinner, a sleek black midi I found on sale. I'd even gotten my nails done for what? A seat by the garbage still. I smiled still. I nodded when someone raised a toast. I wasn't included in because I had done this dance before. I had been the quiet helper, the invisible sibling, the one who didn't ask for much, just a seat. But tonight something felt different, not louder, not angrier, just sharper. I saw everything more clearly. That chair wasn't a punishment, it was the mirror I needed to finally see where I truly stood. They say you never forget the way your mother looks at you. I remember mine looking through me like I was a light bulb that had gone out too early. My siblings basked in her warmth. I stood outside the glow. Our house looked perfect from the sidewalk, white picket fence, hydrangeas blooming in clusters, wind chimes that sang in spring. But inside love came with conditions, and I never seemed to meet them. Nathan was the golden boy, straight A's football captain, born with a jawline and an ego to match. Ivy was the princess, graceful, charming, camera-ready. Every room she entered, my mother followed with compliments. "She's radiant, isn't she?" she'd whisper to guests. And then she'd glance at me and say nothing. I was the one who set the table, the one who ran to the store when we were out of eggs, who ironed Ivy's dresses and Nathan's uniforms. Not because I was asked, but because I was expected to. I moved around the house like a shadow that swept crumbs off the floor. I remember once I made Mom a birthday card. I was 7, maybe 8. It had little paper hearts glued around the edges. A lopsided poem inside. I'd worked on it all afternoon, tongue sticking out as I cut and folded and wrote. She opened it while sipping coffee, glanced at it like a receipt, and set it down without a word. That night, Ivy gave her a necklace Dad bought, and Mom cried. Not quiet tears, loud gasping ones. She hugged Ivy like she had just been handed the moon. I kept trying, though. Maybe love was something you could earn. So I got good grades. I cleaned without being told. I tried to be funny, calm, useful. I tried being invisible, then being loud. Nothing stuck. Whenever I asked for affection, it came wrapped in insult. Be useful, Rhea. You don't have much else going for you, do you? And if I turned to Dad, he'd hide behind his newspaper, shift slightly in his chair, like he might help, but never did. He always chose silence. I stopped asking after a while. I didn't stop hoping, but I stopped asking. I learned that some people only know how to love, what reflects their pride, and I wasn't shiny enough to be proud of. So I became efficient, quiet, durable. I left home at 18, no dramatic exit, No slammed doors, just a duffel bag and a bus ticket. No one followed. No one called. My mother didn't ask where I was going. My father didn't leave me money or advice. Nathan and Ivy didn't look up from their phones. That's why when she pointed at that trash chair last week, it didn't feel new. It didn't even hurt. When she pointed at that trash chair, it wasn't cruelty. It was confirmation. I left just after my high school graduation. No party, no dinner. I walked out the back door while my mother argued over Ivy's curls not being photo-ready for family pictures. I slipped away in a secondhand hoodie, a duffel bag slung over my shoulder, carrying everything I owned. 3 outfits, a pair of flats, and a half-used notebook I never let anyone read. No one stopped me, no one noticed. The apartment I found was barely a room. The wallpaper peeled like old skin, and the radiator made noises like it was arguing with the wall. But it was mine. For the first time, I could close a door and know that behind it, no one would yell, compare, or sigh in disappointment. I worked the gas station during the day and waited tables at a diner at night, the kind with sticky menus and fluorescent lighting that made your skin look gray. I'd scrub coffee pots until my knuckles cracked, then go home, shower in a stall with a broken lock, and fall asleep with my clothes still on. In between shifts, I studied. College felt like a fantasy. People like me weren't meant to reach, but I applied anyway, nights on library computers. Fingers frozen from walking in the cold to use campus Wi-Fi. I didn't have the grades Ivy had, or the extracurriculars Nathan boasted about at dinner. But I had something else, quiet, gritty stubbornness I got in. Not to a big-name university, but to a local community college with old desks and no football team. It didn't matter. It was a door, and I'd take it. I applied for every scholarship that didn't require a GPA above 3.8, got rejected by most. Then one day, a letter came in a cheap white envelope. Inside was a check for $20, a local women's foundation offering symbolic encouragement. Most people would have laughed, I cried. That $20 was 2 shifts worth of gas. It meant anyone thought I was worth betting on. Even a little. It was during my first semester that I met Dr. Kaplan. She was the kind of professor who read your essays twice and looked you in the eyes when she asked how you were. One day after class, she pulled me aside and said, "You write like you're trying not to be heard." I froze. She smiled gently. "But I hear you. And I think you've got something to say." No one had ever said that to me before. Not once. From that moment on, I studied like my life depended on it because it did. I aced classes, volunteered for extra credit, slept 3 hours a night, and never let myself fall behind. Every test passed was a whisper to the version of me that once cried over a birthday card left unopened that night. With a $20 scholarship check in hand, I knew I wasn't worthless, just underseen. It had been almost 8 years since I left that house without a goodbye. Since then, I'd finished my degree, started my own small property firm, and finally felt like I was standing on ground. I built myself. I wasn't rich. Not yet. But I was stable, independent, capable. So when the invitation came, a group text from Ivy of all people, I paused longer than I should have before replying, "I'll be there." It was for our mother's birthday. A fancy restaurant downtown, the kind with valet parking and $40 appetizers. I spent nearly an hour choosing what to wear, settled on a black satin midi dress I bought with my first bonus check, paired with heels I once swore I'd never afford. My hair was done in soft waves. I wore pearl earrings, not real, but they looked it. I even brought gifts. Nothing extravagant but thoughtful. A leather wallet for Dad. Lavender perfume for Mom. Custom keychains with initials carved in wood. For Nathan and Ivy. Souvenirs from a business trip I'd taken to Chicago. I told myself this was a gesture, an olive branch, a way to show them I wasn't the girl by the trash anymore. I arrived 5 minutes late, not enough to be rude, just enough to make an entrance. The room was warm with candlelight filled with elegant laughter and glasses clinking. I spotted them instantly. My siblings laughing loudly. Dad with a scotch in hand. Mom mid-toast. I smiled. Walked over Ivy. Saw me first. Her eyes skimmed my outfit and landed on my shoes. Thrift store clearance, she asked, sipping her drink without breaking eye contact. Nathan laughed. At least she made the effort. I forced a polite smile, held out the gift bags like a peace offering, just a few things. I picked up for you all while I was in Chicago. Nathan pulled out the keychain and raised an eyebrow. Do I look like someone who carries keys? He tossed it back onto the table. Ivy didn't open hers. My father accepted the wallet without a word, glanced at it, and slid it beside his plate like it was hotel pamphlet. Mom smiled as she uncapped her perfume, trying too hard as usual. She murmured, then winked like it was a compliment. No one asked me how I was doing. No one asked about work or life or if I was seeing anyone. I tried to join their conversations, commented on Ivy's wedding plans. Asked about Nathan's new condo, but their replies were short, uninterested, like I was a distant cousin tagging along. The waiter refilled everyone's wine but skipped me. No one noticed. And still part of me whispered, maybe tonight they'll see me. The dessert plates were cleared. Empty wine bottles gleamed like trophies across the table. Laughter still lingered in the air like perfume, but it didn't reach me. I sat at the edge, forgotten, but present like an unpaid intern at a family reunion. The waiter returned, with a black leather folder tucked discreetly beneath his arm. His smile was polished, practiced. He laid the bill on the table. The laughter softened. Forks paused midair. Without missing a beat, my mother slid her manicured hand toward the folder, then pointed directly at me. She's paying, she said lightly. Didn't you say you've got money now? The entire table turned to look at me. I blinked once, twice, unsure if I'd misheard. Nathan leaned back, chuckling. Come on, Rhea. Big shot real estate mogul, right? I glanced at the number on the bill. $6,732.85. My stomach clenched. Seafood towers, steaks. Custom desserts, bottles of wine. I didn't drink courses. I never even saw. I had spent the entire night trying to keep up with conversations that didn't want me in them, and now I was expected to foot the tab. I looked to my father. He didn't meet my eyes, just adjusted his glasses and sipped his drink. Ivy was already back on her phone. My mother swirled the last of her wine and gave me a look. Something between a challenge and a dare. What's wrong? She asked sweetly. You said you were doing fine. Yes, I had said that I was doing fine, but not pay for people who mock me fine. Not bankroll their guiltless indulgence fine. Not buy your way into their love fine. Still the old reflex kicked in, that desperate pull in my chest. The part of me that still wanted to be enough to prove myself, to be seen, to finally be chosen. I took a deep breath, then another. Then I looked at the waiter and smiled. That's not my table, he blinked. I'm sorry. I leaned forward slightly. Voice calm. This isn't my table. I'm not with them. The silence was immediate. My mother's lips parted, her jaw tightening. What are you talking about? I stood, pushed my chair back gently. I wasn't invited. I wasn't welcomed. I was humiliated, insulted, ignored. So no, I won't pay for this dinner because it's not mine, Nathan scoffed. Wow, dramatic much. I didn't even glance at him. They'll split it, I told the waiter softly. They can afford it, after all, their family. I turned heels, clicking against the marble as I walked away. Behind me, a stunned hush. Then my mother hissed something. My sister gasped. My father muttered under his breath. But I didn't flinch. I didn't stop. I wasn't angry. I was done. The waiter hesitated, glancing from me to the others. His eyes widened slightly, sensing the shift in atmosphere. I reached into my clutch and pulled out a slim black card. This was already separated, I said, handing it to him. I only ordered sparkling water. He took the card, nodded slowly. Of course, my mother's voice cut through the silence like a blade. Rhea, sit down. I didn't. She stood halfway, wine glass in hand. You're making a scene. Don't be ridiculous. You can't just. I turned to her calmly. I didn't make the scene, Mom. You did when you sat me by the trash and called it my seat. Her mouth opened, then shut. I looked at the table, at Ivy dabbing the corner of her lip, pretending to be unbothered. At Nathan, arms, crossed eyes rolling, at my father whose silence had always spoken louder than words. And then I looked at my empty chair. Not mine. Never was. The waiter returned with my receipt and a small nod of respect. It's all settled, thank you, said. And thank you for treating me like I belonged even when they didn't. His expression softened. You deserve better, I smiled. I know. I tucked the receipt into my clutch and turned again toward the exit. I didn't rush. I didn't slam doors. I just walked past their disbelief, past their discomfort, past every apology that would never come. I passed the wine display, the glossy wall-length mirror, and caught a glimpse of myself in it. Shoulders back, chin lifted, eyes steady, the girl who once begged for a place at their table was gone. As I neared the hostess stand, the waiter jogged up beside me with something in his hand, a folded napkin. You forgot this, he said, then added quieter, good for you. I took the napkin, not because I needed it, but because it felt like a closing gesture. A clean end. Split the rest evenly. I told him, tilting my head toward the chaos I'd left behind. I'm sure they can afford it. Outside, the night air was crisp. It kissed my skin like congratulations. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't cold. I walked to my car with ease, no anger, no panic, only peace. The kind that comes when you realize you no longer have to beg for something that should have been freely given. I started the engine, pulled away from the curb, and didn't look back. They thought that chair was their insult. They didn't know it was my exit door. By the time I got home, my phone had already buzzed 5 times. First it was Nathan, then Ivy, then Mom's cell, then Dad. A number I hadn't seen light up my screen in over a year. I watched the calls roll in without touching the screen. My wine sat untouched on the counter. I changed out of my dress, pulled my hair back, and sank into my chair. Not in exhaustion, but in stillness. The messages came next. Nathan, they charged our cards. Yours didn't cover it. Can you fix this, Ivy? What you did was cruel. Mom's crying. Mom. You embarrassed this family in public. What kind of daughter does that? I nearly laughed. Not out loud, but the kind that bubbles just behind your ribs. The kind that's not funny, just freeing. My email pinged mercifully. Not from them, it was from my legal team. The contract was finalized. The final acquisition documents were ready to sign. The next morning, I sat in a glass-walled conference room, sunlight pouring in through the high-rise windows. My co-founder Ava gave me a small nod. We flipped through the pages together, pen in hand, my name in type at the bottom of every one. This deal would change everything. 7 figures, full buyout. My platform, built from late nights, ramen dinners, and quiet sacrifice, was now national. My phone buzzed again. A message from Dad, short and sour. Dad. We need to talk. You've upset everyone. I didn't respond. I passed my phone to Ava and smiled. Hold that for me, I don't... The noise. She grinned gladly. I signed the final page. Just like that, I stepped fully into the life I had built. With no help, no handouts, and certainly no seat at their table. They thought I'd run back like I always did, that I'd explain myself, apologize, fix what they broke. But I was done explaining, done folding myself to fit into spaces that never wanted me whole. I wasn't too sensitive. I was finally too busy building my own world. The rooftop glowed under strands of golden string lights, swaying gently in the evening breeze. The skyline behind us shimmered like a painting glass. Towers, distant traffic, a city alive with second chances. 20 seats wrapped around a long linen-covered table, each one filled. My co-founder Ava sat to my right, laughing at something our operations manager said. On my left, Mr. Kaplan, the professor who once told me I had something to say, clinked his glass against mine with a quiet smile. No one here asked where my dress came from. No one compared me to anyone else. No one needed me to shrink so they could shine. These people weren't blood, they were better. They were the ones who'd stayed up late helping me rehearse pitches, who shared takeout meals in tiny apartments, who told me I mattered before the world did. The food wasn't extravagant, roasted vegetables, grilled salmon, cardamom cake, but every bite tasted like arrival, like home. As dessert was served, Ava leaned in. Did your family ever call again? I smiled. They did. Said they were hurt, wanted to talk, and I didn't. She raised her glass to not needing permission to exist. To building new tables, I replied. I stood quietly and tapped my glass. The conversation softened. Thank you, I said, not just for tonight, but for showing up again and again, for choosing me, for sitting at this table, not out of obligation, but because you wanted to. Chairs shifted as people raised their glasses in a chorus of cheers and warmth. Laughter floated through the air like music. The wind kissed my shoulders, the city blinked in approval. I looked around at every face, every plate, every candle flicker. I didn't just feel included. I felt rooted. This wasn't a favor. This wasn't a pity invite. This was my life, built seat by seat on the quiet power of never giving up. They once made it clear there was no place for me at their table. They wrote me out of their story, but I built a new one, and this time, I sit at the head of the table. Did you ever have to rebuild from a place where no one believed in you? If yes, you belong here. Hit subscribe and let's walk this journey together.